Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Today's guest on Better Than I Found It is longtime Campbell University men's and women's golf coach John Crooks. John's record at Campbell has been impressive to say the least. Just this past month, his women's team won their 100th title, thus placing him second all-time on the victories list in NCAA women's golf, trailing only Duke's Dan Brooks. His teams, both men and women, have won 27 conference championships during his time at Campbell, and John has been named Conference Coach of the Year a staggering 23 times. But Coach Crooks was also a very fine player back in the day, capturing the 1967 U.S. Junior in a 2-1 victory over future U.S. Open champion Andy North, and also winning the 2001 U.S. Senior Amateur. As I've heard it said many times, success leaves clues, and John has had more than his fair share of success. I hope you enjoy the listening. Okay, all my Better Than I Found It listeners, join me in welcoming Campbell men's and women's coach John Crooks to the podcast today. John, it's great to have you join me today. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, Mike, I'm honored. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as you and I get along in this coaching career, I've been coaching 38 years, counting basically 9 or 10 years as a head high school golf coach. And you've been coaching men's and women's golf at the Division I level since 1990, basically.
Correct.
I mean, we've seen a lot. We've gone through a lot. You and I don't cross paths that often, but I see you at tournaments occasionally. I saw you at regionals last year. I remember that in North Carolina. But it's crazy to think of the perspective that we both have on just kind of the history of college golf, and I'm going to get into that later. What do you think about that?
Well, it has changed. I mean, equipment has changed, and curriculum has changed, and we truly deal with athletes every day now, where 35 years ago, that wasn't such a big deal. It's changed. It's changed. And then that we got introduced to cell phones. And so now we're making do with the best we can.
Yeah, it's different. And another thing that's changed is the way we look at off season, because probably 35 years ago, once finals showed up, or once our last tournament in the fall was over, you met with the team, you talked to them, but now it's a little more structured. I mean, what are you doing with your men's and women's teams in the off season? I know we only have 8 hours a week, but what do you have planned this off season?
Well, I'm fortunate that both of my teams love to work out, and so that's 3 hours a week. And then if I see them one day, each of them, then we try to save it up so that there's one day that they can play golf, and just for fun, and that's 8 hours. So we still are doing something every day with somebody.
Yeah, I think that's important. You don't want October 28th to roll around, you get through with your last tournament, and then the next time you really see them would be in mid-January. That's too long a break right there. But are any of your kids going to play anything over the break? Any tournaments over the break?
So most of my players are international.
Mm-hmm.
And I say international, most of them are from the Scandinavian countries. And so, no, I don't think they're going to play a lot. A couple of them, will go to Thailand or to Australia to keep polishing their game. But for the most part, they'll hit balls and come back, and we'll get them in shape.
That's good. That's good. Well, the offseason has changed a little bit through the years. We are definitely doing more than we used to, even though the NCAA limits us to 8 hours a week. But so this past fall, you obviously had a great season on both the men's and women's side, but the women had a very significant win in the Golf Week Challenge at Pawleys Island, South Carolina. A 5-stroke win. That sounds, significant. You won the golf tournament, but it was a landmark and a milestone for you as a women's head coach. It was your 100th victory as a head coach. Talk about the significance of that for you and for your program and for the players.
It's the type, Mike, you know how winning is great. Uh, and once you win, then you're on to the next one. And the number kind of just creeped up on us. Uh, we tried to have a schedule so that we would be competitive every week. Sometimes we were, and sometimes we were not. But we also uh, tried to get the best out of each one of them. And the 100th victory is a big number, and I was very thankful to get it. But it was not one of my motivational factors.
Yeah, last spring we won the Aggie Invitational, and as a head coach, I've spent a lot of years as an assistant coach, so I don't really have, not the coach of record for a lot of wins at Oklahoma State, but I wasn't a head coach for 8 years there and been a coach at Baylor for 10 and a half now. And I got my 50th win, and I was pretty excited about that. You've got 100 or 50 more victories, double what I've got. That's amazing.
Well, I thank you.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. You only trail Duke's Dan Brooks. Now, Dan is an absolute, he's like Dave Williams on the men's side. I mean, Dan is just a true legend, a true icon in our sport. And you only trail him on the women's side. He's got 143 wins and you have 100. Put that in perspective, because that's pretty tall cotton right there.
Well, I've had a chance to spend some time with Dan, and Dan makes everybody feel at ease. And I can see him as a coach, somebody that he could recognize the good times, and I think he recognizes when they need a little push. He's just that steadfast foundation that I think all coaches should try to emulate.
Yeah, I mean, he's been so good for so long. That type of success, to maintain it and continue to be up near the top of women's college golf is pretty impressive. But you only trail him, so you've only got 43. Maybe you should just go on a run here. What do you think?
That'd be nice, but I'm realistic.
All right. Well, let me put your record in perspective for my listeners, because a lot of them aren't going to. This will surprise a lot of people. It's like this. Now, I'm going to include men's and women's teams for the last basically 34, 35 years. But you've had 3 golf All-Americans, 2 academic All-Americans, 24 GCA All-American scholars, 33 WGCA All-American scholars, 36 regional appearances, 5 NCAA championship appearances, 27 conference players of the year. That's shocking. 15 conference freshman of the year, 27 conference championships, 23 coach of the year. Where do you put 23 coach of the year awards? Are they in a closet, or are they just on walls? 161 team titles, 100 on the women's side, 61 on the men, 210 all conference team members, and 367 all conference academic team members. John, come on. That's a lot. That's incredible. I mean, talk about that. And amongst all of that, what are some of the most memorable? I know that your 100th win on the women's side will be memorable for you whenever you retire one day. But what's some other things that really stand out in that big body of work I just gave?
Well, I've been very, very fortunate to be at the right place at the right time. Campbell has built a great golf course in 1974. It's called Keith Hills, and it's hosted a lot of big events in North Carolina. But they didn't have a lot of emphasis on the golf program. I happened when my wife decided to go to law school. She chose Campbell, and so we moved to Bowie's Creek in '84. And my business traveled with me wherever I went. And so I had a little freedom to play some golf during the week. And during the week was when the college kids were on the golf course. So after a little time, the athletic director asked me if I'd like to be a coach. And I go, I don't have a clue how to coach. I know a little something about golf. And And the rest, as they say, is history. So it's a lot about being in the right place at the right time. A university believing in you, giving you the things that I'd like to say that I want, but they gave me the things that I need or needed, and just working hard every day.
Well, obviously you must love it. You've been doing it for 35 years, and I truly don't know how somebody coaches both men and women for 35 years. I mean, it's all I can do to keep with two assistant coaches to keep the thing above water on the men's side. I don't know what I would do with two teams.
Well,
So go ahead, tell me how you
no,
do that.
no. I mean, what you said is exactly right. I don't know what it's like to not coach two teams.
There you go.
And, mine goes from what I realize is that if I spend a week standing behind someone or walking with someone, some of my information is diluted. But if I am doing it about every fourth or fifth day, then maybe they hear something that takes. And so it's yeah, of course, it all starts because of the assistants and the great job that they do, and they're just tireless. But it's um, just been a lot of fun. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I think.
I think you are too, and I've enjoyed getting to know you through the years, even though we're not close because we don't cross paths that often. But I've always enjoyed it when we have. So I asked you about the other 99 wins on the women's side. What's the other most memorable one you think of? Like, boy, I'll never forget that win.
Well, it was the first win on the women's side,
Yeah.
and when I inherited the women's team, they had started it the year before without a coach, and they had uh, two girls that had very small scholarships, and they were able to fill in the other three spots with athletes from other teams to get started that year. And so what I inherited was basically I was at ground zero, and uh, probably well, one of the young ladies that I recruited um, came in from Argentina, and she said, "Well, I love to play, and I think I can be good, but I just have big numbers all the time, and if I could get rid of the big numbers." Uh, well, the team that I had averaged 117 around, so I thought I'd deal with a few big numbers, and she ended up being all conference. Just was Did my assistant for 3 years, so it worked out really well. But my first victory was when you have a team that is excited to break 400, and then is excited to break right down the thing, 375, 350, and then to go down to Georgia, to Mercer, at the end of the year, and there were 8 teams. And for this team that maybe was the worst team in the country the year before, for them to win a tournament it's just hard to explain. Watching 5 young ladies just so happy that it's hard for them to even breathe. They were laughing, crying, just had a great time. So that's one I'll cherish.
It'd be hard to forget that. Do you still have the trophy? Is it still in the?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good.
In my office, um, with 161 trophies, I have a problem of where they go. And uh, so the things I have in my office, the pictures on my wall are pretty special. They hold special meaning to me, like the first men's win, the first women's win, the first time I went to the national championship, the first time I had somebody win a regional, play in the Olympics, or play in the World Amateur. Just the little things that you accumulate over the years.
Yeah, it's all good memories. And, as you continue to go down this journey, this path or whatever, it's like it, I think people don't recognize how important those things are to a coach and they're milestones and they're things that, I mean, you'll keep that trophy from the Golf Week Challenge forever because it was 100. So it's just I guess represents a long, long journey that you're still on. You're still continuing down that road. And but before we continue on that journey, I need to go back early in your journey when you were, I think, about a 17-year-old kid. You won the U.S. Junior Boys Championship in 1967 at Twin Hills Country Club in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, a golf course I know very well. I played a lot of golf on that course growing up, and actually, it was the site of my last high school golf tournament I ever coached, and we lost a 13-shot lead with 9 holes to play. So Twin Hills Country Club is actually the site of the last state championship that I coached as a high school coach in 1997. So 30 years after you won the U.S. Junior there, we lost a 13-shot lead with 9 holes to play, and you won the U.S. Junior. So completely different memories. Talk about that week. You beat Andy North 2-1 in the final. He went on to win 2 U.S. Open championships. That's got to have like significant meaning in your career.
Yes, the USGA Junior was a big part of my life, and was a greater surprise to me than did probably anybody else.
Really? Why was this a surprise?
Well, you know, when you don't get a chance to get on the national stage too often. The year before, I'd played in a tournament called the International JCs, and had finished second there with playing with Bruce Fleischer and playing with Lanny Watkins in the final group. And so I thought I had some game, but you don't go out to a national championship, or at least I didn't then expecting to win.
You know, my dad played in that JC Junior you're talking about in 1948.
Okay.
And he told the funniest story about there was a news reporter from the Abilene News Reporter, Abilene, Texas, had chaperoned him and 3 other players to Nebraska for this. And it's a really funny story. But he played in that. I think it was the second or third annual at the time. So you finished runner-up in that event.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you obviously are a good player. If you finish runner-up in that one and you win the U.S. Junior the next year, that's pretty amazing. Did you know you are one of 4 current college golf coaches to have won that title? And do you know the other names?
Well, I've met several of them. The coach at Houston, the coach at Cincinnati, and the coach at Davidson. It's a small group.
Yeah, it's the smallest fraternity in college golf right there. And you are the elder statesman of that group. You won in 1967. Tim Straub, I think, won in 1982, maybe. Doug Martin at Cincinnati won 1984, and Cameron Peck, the assistant at the University of Houston, won in 2008. That's a pretty select group right there.
I'd like to think really good players.
Absolutely. So. Listen, you played for an icon. You played for one of the legendary coaches in any sport in the history of the NCAA, Dave Williams at the University of Houston. Talk about his coaching style. Do you use anything you learned from him? I mean, what effect did his coaching style have on yours? And talk about your collegiate experience.
Well, my collegiate experience was pretty short. I spent a semester with Dave and with the team. It was, he was the kind of guy that whenever you were around him, it was fun, and you hung on every word. He wasn't very happy the year that Texas came to town and won the All-American tournament in a playoff. But other than that, he just was always very positive. And, his style was, don't go hit balls. I mean, just go play. And every day we had to play. And every day we had to record a score. We had to turn it into him. And that's, we had a lot of people on the team. And it was a matter of survival of the fittest.
Well, tell me about speaking of survival of the fittest, they were the #1 golf program in the country at the time you were there. And I know you had, I think of a couple of players, maybe John Mahaffey, maybe Hal Underwood. But who were all the teammates you had, even though you were there for a short time? Name some of those teammates.
Well, let's see. Doug Olson, Wood, Bob Barbarossa, Tim Jenkins, Kip Peterball. I can't believe Terry Jastrow from Texas. Dave Schuster, not the one coaching now,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
just those are the ones that come to the top of my head.
yeah. Great program. Won the national championship, I think 16 times under Dave Williams. And since Mike Holder didn't get it, he only won 8. I just don't know how anybody will ever touch that record of 16 national championships. It's kind of silly to think about it. And he retired quite a long time ago, but his legacy is pretty secure in college golf. Mike Holder used to tell me he wasn't a golfer. Dave Williams wasn't a golfer, but he was a true competitor. You said something. He always loved having fun. He was an unbelievable promoter, and he knew people about as well as any coach could possibly know people.
We never had a team meeting that other than a fellowship of Christian athletes meeting. We would get together. It would be, I think we had 35 on the team, and it would be the fellowship of Christian athletes, and then he might talk about golf for 10 minutes, and then off we'd go. So he was a good Christian man, and I admired him quite a bit.
You know, you mentioned something earlier. He'd like to have you guys play. That's probably the biggest struggle I have as a coach. We have this nice practice facility on campus, and our guys just park themselves out there and hit 107 irons from the same lie with the same wind to the same target, and they think they're getting better. And I kind of have to yank them off the range tee and say, go play golf. So I appreciate the fact he taught you that. I'm sure you've used that as a coach. But 35 years, tons of different innovations. You mentioned another thing, that he had 35 players in that team. Now, no one has 35 players anymore.
Right.
But that's incredible, especially when you consider we're getting ready to go. There's some legislation looming on the horizon about roster limits, and it could be 8 or 9 somewhere in there. But 35 seems like a lot of players.
Well, back then the NCAA they didn't have a lot of the regulations. I remember the first pamphlet I looked at was no more than a little pamphlet that you could fold out that had the rules for the NCAA. And so there wasn't a cap as far as scholarship money. And everybody there was getting something as far as I knew. But yeah, times have changed.
What is the best innovation you've seen in 35 years? Something that we've done in college golf, you go, wow, I'm glad we did that.
Well, you referenced Mike Holder and Rick LaRose and I were all on the NCAA tournament committee. And the first year we got together, we went from regional allocations to selecting the best teams in the rankings. I caught a lot of slack because of that. Then the next year or 2 years later, I talked about the 500 rule quite a bit. And Mike and Rick at first were not very happy with that rule, but eventually it was passed. And I think it helped college golf. And then the fourth year, we made the change to go to from stroke play to match play. Mm-hmm. And that's when the TV got involved. And that was really exciting stuff. Now, it took a couple more years before TV actually made it because they put us off a little bit. But I think those are some pretty significant changes in the men's side.
If you were the czar of college golf, what would be your first thing you would do on the very first day on the job? I mean, you're running college golf, period. You are the man. What are you going to change?
Well, I think every other sport has the ability to substitute. And I think sometimes I would, you can say you have a starting 5, but every starting 5 that I know of in basketball, they're substituted after a few times up and down the court. And I'm not suggesting we substitute in the middle of a round, but with injuries and sickness and situations back home and the different challenges that a student athlete has now, I think being able to substitute would be our next step towards getting better.
Ryan Hibble brought that up several years ago, and I was on a working committee, the head of it, where we had a bunch of coaches that discussed that. And probably the biggest, I don't know, obstacle to that was World Amateur Golf Rankings, because if you sub a kid out, he ends up finishing last in the tournament. And there were a lot of headaches and things in there that didn't allow that to pass. But I've always believed we substitute right now. We just do it in between tournaments. Every one of us substitutes.
Well,
And
right, but we've got to have a crystal ball to figure out, well, who do we want to spend 5 days with, and how are they going to be on the fifth day?
Mhm.
And I'm just not a very good fortune teller.
I don't know any golf coach that is. So yeah, we had a lot of changes. NIL has come in, the transfer portal, which is very different. Obviously, roster limits is on the horizon. It's coming. So a lot of changes. College golf is I don't know if it's a young man's sport coaching this thing we're doing right now, but I've got to think you better be ready to be flexible, changeable, adjustable, malleable. You can't get too much in a pattern, because when you do, something's going to change.
Years ago, I read a book that Joe Paterno had written, and he talked about how long he'd been coaching and about how many assistants that he had worked with, and uh, his one of his goals at the time was every 5 years he had to change, because he knew his sport was going to change every 5 years. And he had the type of people around him, the young people around him, that had their finger on the pulse and knew what to do.
Well, you bring that up. That brings me to my next question. Your two assistants on the men's side, Matt Moot; on the women's side, Val Bettino. You've got two really good assistant coaches. You need them. I mean, you're not a spring chicken anymore. Neither am I. And it's harder for us to relate to what those kids are going through. Tell me about your two assistants. Why are they good? How they help you?
Well, I'm going to start with Matt because he's been with me the longest. Matt played for me, and it probably was the middle of his sophomore year, quiet. And I realized just how hard he was working. And then I started paying attention, and I noticed that he never, he was one of those rare athletes that used his time efficiently. And he cared about getting bigger, stronger, faster. He cared about putting better and hitting it better. And equally, he cared about his teammates. And whenever you'd say something nice to Matt, he would immediately deflect it to one of his teammates was doing it better. Then he graduated with honors, was an academic All-American, played professionally. Then I had an opening on my team. I called Matt and I asked him, he'd been out of school for about 3 years, if he'd like to join me. He said, "No, coach, I'm putting really good now. I just see, I got half to play." Well, so that went on for about a year, and then I had another opening come up, and he still was playing good. The next time I had an opening was 2 years later. I did not call Matt. He called me, and I said, "Well, that's the end of this process." And he's been with me on and off for about 6 years now. He's a very talented, intuitive coach. I'd want to play for Matt. Val has been with us. Oh, I think yesterday was her 90th day anniversary, and she comes from. She's an internet was. She's an American citizen whose parents were from South America. She played for 5 years at Idaho, and then was at uh, Bowling Green. And when I went through the interviewing process, I was able to talk to three quality people, and she just was exceptional. And she's been that way ever since she's got here. She doesn't want to step on any toes, but I kind of she steps up and she looks me eyeball to eyeball and tells me why maybe we should make an adjustment, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, as a head coach, you have to check your ego occasionally, because those young assistant coaches are probably going to have some good ideas, but if you're closed off to them, that's going to be a problem. I try to stay open. I try to listen. And it doesn't always feel good when it's the same way a player doesn't feel good when a coach is disciplining him or her. But when a young coach is giving you something, you should listen. Sounds like you got a couple of really good ones there.
I'm blessed.
That's great. Well, listen, I passed over this, but I wanted to ask this question. I've asked this of a lot of coaches, but all of us have inspiring stories. If you coach 35 years, you've got to have a few. But what's in the story of a player, a former player that really inspired you, the way he or she took care of their business or their story in general?
Well, the first name that pops in my mind, her name is Kaylin Yost Crownover, and I saw her at a little junior tournament down in southern Florida at Jack Nicklaus's course, the Bear. I was playing in a small event. Uh, I saw some talent, I saw some skills, and then when I met her, I realized that the best way she couldn't hear me.
Mm-hmm.
I could read my lips, and her father was there to help. And one thing led to another, and she came to Campbell. She had been raised, being a deaf child, she had been raised that everything that she did was fine. And when she got on my team in her first round, she shanked it on the 18th hole. And an hour or so later, I go, well, what kind of thoughts were going through your head before you hit that shot? And she thought that she took that as something negative. And so she's ready to go home. And but her daddy said, well, he's pretty old. You might want to go back. He's probably not going to change, so you might want to at least answer his question. And then she had a great career, and she played in an LPGA event with Julie Inkster, and she, being in the Olympics, Deaf Olympics, she won a gold medal in Greece. And she's just been a great supporter and a great person and an inspiration to just about anybody that meets her.
Great when you have a story like that as a coach that, and not everything was perfect all the way through, but it sounds like to me it's a great, great memory for you and somebody you look back on. That's great. We've talked a lot about just your legacy as far as it being a 35-year legacy. I'm going to ask a question. How much longer do you think you want to do this? And if your enthusiasm level is a 1, that means you have no enthusiasm almost, or a 10, it's off the charts. How long are you going to do this? What level on that chart are you as far as enthusiasm?
Well, as far as enthusiasm, I have to think I'm a 9.
Okay.
I mean, I think they keep talking about the rule changes and all these other things. And, that just creates uncertainty. We don't know. People are talking about making decisions for 6 months down the road. We have no clue what it's going to look like then. But I love it. And my wife passed away about 6 years ago. And so I've got 2 teens, and I've got 2 teens and 2 children and 4 grandchildren, and I'm a happy man.
That is wonderful. To have that enthusiasm, I'm kind of with you. I've got a lot of enthusiasm. I love what I do. And obviously, young coaches usually have that. I mean, because they haven't been jaded or beaten up or whatever. But a lot of old coaches, it's tough when a veteran kind of gets into that cruise control where it's like, I can't change anything. I'm tired of fighting it. And I just think that's a bad place to be. You probably don't need to be coaching. Sounds like to me you're not even close to that. A 9 is a good number on that scale.
I agree with you completely. And I think for me, just having the assistants that they can talk the language, they can speak to them, they know what's happening, and they can share that information. So yes, I'm very fortunate.
That's great. Well, before we finish here, I do want to go over your spring schedule. So if you could tell me what you not every tournament necessarily, but like when do your men and women start competing in the spring, and where is the national championship? Not the national. What regionals do you think you might get sent to, or any of that? Just what about your spring?
My spring will start down in Charleston at the College of Charleston hosts an event called the Briar Creek the battle at Briar Creek, and that's just such an outstanding golf course. Then later on, we're going to play in. I think we've got 3 other tournaments early in March, and then I think we end up our season playing at the University of North Carolina. We've just got a lot of golf planned, and if we get in this year, right now we're not ranked high enough to be an at-large team. We got up to 80th sometime this fall, but and I think the number is probably 60. And if we get to that, fine. If not, we're going to have to win the conference championship. And as you know, conference champions, they can go anywhere in the nation. And so I just hope I get that call.
Where is your conference championship on the men's side and the women's side this year?
Well, for the men, we're going up to Pennsylvania, up north of Philly, to a place called Union National. And on the women's side, we're going to go to a place off the coast of North Carolina called St. James Plantation.
Okay. Looking forward to both of those, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Well, John, I appreciate you spending, almost an hour with me. We had a little technical difficulty there for a bit, but got through that. And this has been nice getting to know you a little bit better. I think you're a great coach and a great example of what our profession is all about. And I wish you the best of luck this spring. And thanks for joining me.
Well, if I may, I know you're ready to wind down, but I want you to know just how well respected you are in the coaching industry. And for the first time I watched you at a U.S. Junior, you were the first person at the golf course. I thought I was going to be real early, and you were already there. And to watch you and to be on the green with you on number 18 at Sun River when you won the national championship, I think that was, when you get a chance to watch a professional that knows what they're doing, I know it inspired me, and I know that I saw a lot of things that you did on the golf course that I've incorporated. I don't get involved nearly as much as I used to. But when I do, I hope it's meaningful. So I just want to thank you, and I hope everybody knows just what kind of contribution you've made.
Well, John, that is very kind of you to say, and I do remember you being there at Sun River. That is a moment I'll never forget in college golf, and the embrace with Jonathan Moore as he won the individual title, and you and several others, John Rice and some others that were nearby on the 18th green. So thank you for giving me that memory, and I appreciate the comments you made. So so thankful you can join me today, and I appreciate it, John.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.